I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things certified financial planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro, and welcome to today's podcast. And in today's podcast, I am talking to a very interesting and very special guest, and that is Matthew Walne from Santorini Financial Planning. Hello, Matthew.
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, good, thank you. Very good, very good.
Now, we are here to talk all things certified financial planner with you, aren't we?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
And we've got lots to talk about, all things certified financial planner related with you. So we're just going to dive straight in and get into the conversation, talking about the highs and lows of your fairly lengthy journey, I might say, to certified financial planner. And also then after that, we're going to move on and talk about the takeaways, the valuable bits that you have learnt from the process and things that you will be carrying forward to, to help your clients in as the months and years roll by. So I'm going to ask you straight away to tell us about how you found out about the CFP and why you decided to undertake this certification.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I can remember quite that far back. So that's tells you a lot, really. So I probably really discovered financial planning as we know it back in my early-ish days as a financial advisor, when I kind of realised that I didn't like the 100% sort of transactional nature of where I was working. So I was kind of looking for something a little bit different. So I thought there must be more to the job than just, selling pensions and ISA and stuff. So I just thought there's got to be a different way to do it. And I don't know quite how I stumbled across it, but there must have been somebody I met at a conference or something who was a certified financial planner. I'd not even heard at that point what it was. So I obviously looked into it a little bit more carefully. And that was when, obviously, the good old days, it was the IFP back then. So, we're going back quite a way now. So probably sort of mid-2000s, I was, looking at trying to find something that was a bit more, I don't know, interesting really for the job, because doing the transactional stuff, it's pretty boring really after a while. And
yeah,
it's
like a conveyor belt.
Yeah, and you think, well, I got into this job to help people to live, their lives better with the money, and all you're doing is transactional stuff. So we're going back a good 17 years probably when I first discovered about the CFP, and then it took me, I think by the time I'd set my business up in 2010 at the end of then, that was really when I was looking into it. And I think by sort of 2012 I'd been on I think it was the integrated financial planning course that the IFP ran.
Yeah.
And actually I went on that course with Dan Atkinson, who's now at Paradigm Norton, who recently got CFP as well. So we've probably taken the same time to get to the same point, but it is probably less traumatic than mine. But so we did probably waited a few years, I reckon, after that to actually really get into it. And then that was back in the day when you had to do I think it was a multiple choice exam. No, in fact, there was a different exam before that, and then there was a multiple choice exam.
There was the old principles of financial planning, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think I had one stab at that and went down to London, got absolutely drenched in the rain, sat a 3-hour exam, soaking wet, and came out of it utterly miserable, I think.
Oh, dear. Oh, God.
So that was good fun. So then did the multiple choice exam, passed that, went on to the level 6 case study, which would have been around about 2018, I think I did that, or started that.
Yeah.
So I went on a CISI course in Chester. So there's quite a few of us on this course. I think everybody who did one submission, and I think I was the only one who went beyond that. So that probably tells you a bit about sort of the drop off of of numbers. I think people
Yeah.
did the first submission were completely, utterly shocked about how badly they'd done, and that was it, and left it and never went back again. But
No.
I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment, so I continued, did 3 submissions and didn't get it, and then of course it all changed again.
Yeah.
So then I had to do another exam. So another 3-hour exam, wearing a mask for 3 hours because it was during lockdown.
Oh, God.
So that was good fun. And then started the back end of 2020, I think, is when I got the level 7 case study.
Yeah.
And then obviously did 2 attempts at that and passed end of last year. So
Woohoo!
yes, woohoo! So yeah, there's probably nobody more delighted than me than you, I think. Actually, when I passed.
Absolutely.
So it's been a long, hard road.
Yeah, it has been, hasn't it?
And a long, hard road. And you follow my journey pretty closely throughout. So you know pretty much. I mean, there's been probably more downs than ups.
Yeah.
And there's been points where, I thought I'm just going to jack it in. And there's actually some points where I just thought, am I actually good enough to be even doing this? And you sort of get filled with self-doubt, and then you sort of knock yourself around the head a bit and just think, okay, well, there's a reason you're doing this, because you want to be good at your job and you want to prove to people and to myself, that I'm capable of doing it. So I just stuck at it and stuck at it and stuck at it. And obviously got help from yourself. I hired you, and I used Steve Martin's FP Academy on their course. And to be honest, I don't think I'd have got where I am today if I hadn't done that. So I mean, it's just such a huge undertaking. And it does, it can be quite a lonely period as well. There's so much work involved, but it's, now I'm back out the other end of it. I'm just thinking, I'm just so glad I stuck at it. It
was kind of worth it all in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All the pain.
It wasn't much fun, and quite a lot of sacrifices. Expense and time getting it done, but it's definitely worth it in the end.
You're like a dog with a bone, aren't you?
Unfortunately, that's the thing. I don't like to be defeated. So
no way that was going to go.
No, that was not going to happen. There was absolutely no way I was going to give it up. Even though there was points, I felt really low, and you just think, okay, this is not going to beat me. I am going to win and conquer this, and of course did in the end. But it's So tell us about some of the aspects of it that you found the hardest, perhaps, that you kind of had to rethink. Were there aspects that you had to rethink your approach, or was it a case of how you explained things that the assessors didn't like? What was happening? I mean, there was quite a combination of things. I mean, your favourite thing is talking about assumptions, and it's about absolutely nailing those and why you've chosen them, even down to things that you might need, such as annuity rates or life expectancy. You can all say, oh, the life expectancy is going to be 100, but then you've got to say, well, why? What's your reasoning for it? Why are you choosing these annuity rates? Based on what factors? You're using joint life annuities or level or indexed, and you've got to thoroughly explain all those bits. And I think the trouble is you go into the case study thinking a lot of things, and you think, well, I know it, so surely the assessors will know it. And of course, if you don't put it down or don't explain it, then I think the problem is a lot of people underestimate what is needed to go in it. And I certainly did. I thought, well, I'm pretty good at my job, I know what I'm talking about, and it just completely takes you by surprise, I think. But it's it does make you think. Makes you think, really. And the case studies are certainly a lot more complex than the level 6 ones. It's really there's so much to include, and quite a lot of the assumptions are now given for you as well. So actually make it easy for you in a way. But you've got to completely nail the assumptions, I think, before you do too much else in it. I think that was my problem, and I think that's where you sort of pulled me upon. Was okay, the body of the work is quite good, but then there's just big gaps in your assumptions, and
Yeah.
they all lead on to everything else. And that's, and that was a sort of a big eye opener for me. And I also think, just your Excel skills as well. I mean, I use Excel a lot, but I've never used them for, doing future values and present values, and you have to do
kind
a
of mini
lot of
cash
that.
flow and all of that.
Going backwards and forwards with your pension calculations and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's where the assumptions come in, isn't it? Because if you've got your assumptions, as we've talked about, if you've got that nailed down, then it makes the Excel spreadsheet build isn't an easy thing to do either.
No.
But it does make it easier because you know what numbers you're plugging in if your assumptions are nailed down. Whereas if neither are nailed down, then you've got too many moving parts, I think.
Yeah, and there's an awful lot of bits in there. If you get your figures wrong, you'll need to change them. You have to completely rewrite the report, which makes it, very difficult, especially if when it's 60 pages and you're having to try to find all the figures that you're looking at.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the trickiest things. I know that Joanna Redmond, as she is now, she was saying on the Christmas edition of the podcast that actually one of her tips was for still a significant number of people fail their first attempt, their first submission for their financial plan, and she was saying try and find a way to highlight the changes that you're making in the second and perhaps third submissions, because a lot of people don't. They just kind of add in more words, and it's still quite hard for the assessor to find what's changed.
Yes, I mean, I certainly went through with our highlighter on mine, just went through all the text that I knew was variable. So all the calculations and figures, and just went through it and made sure every time I double checked and treble checked just to make sure. But you change one thing on one of the spreadsheets, and then it just filters through. So you have to be really, really careful, because you've got to make sure it all adds up again at the end. So
and that's right. And it's really easy, isn't it, to leave a figure in that you've written into the text when you've changed your spreadsheet. So your spreadsheets are correct. It's just that then your text doesn't completely reflect, only partially reflects what you've then resubmitted.
Which is partly where I went wrong the first time, because I think I'd changed some of the spreadsheets and they didn't correlate with the text.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's also that kind of race to the end in the last few weeks as well, where when you're creating the plan, you're putting quite a lot of pressure on yourself. I mean, everybody is, not just you, but everybody is, aren't they, to try and make it the best that it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is definitely a race against time. I think human nature is that we tend to leave things to the last minute anyway, so that never helps. I mean, I did make quite an early start on it, but I mean, I was, actually during the first submission wasn't a great time for me personally anyway, because I had my mum in hospital who was actually dying at that point. So, I probably shouldn't have even done the first submission, but I did it anyway, even though it was difficult.
Again with the dog with the bone.
I did it anyway. And, and sort of the period afterwards wasn't great either. No. So, but we had sort of lockdowns and what have you. So it was a good opportunity to actually do it. And, I locked myself away in a room, and family left me alone for quite a bit and managed to get it done. But it was, it is extremely time consuming.
Yeah. I think, you can't underestimate the time. I think, I dread to think how many hours it is.
I didn't count, put it up. Let alone hours, we're talking about months and months and months have sort of disappeared. But it is a challenge. There's a reason why there's only, just under 1,000 CFPs in the country, is because it's extremely hard to do. And not everybody's got the time or the inclination or whatever to do it. And, I'm quite lucky. My kids are not quite as young as they were when I first was embarking on it. And, you can leave them alone for a few hours now, where they can entertain themselves, where when they were young, you couldn't. So, it's certainly been made easier with that. But, when you're trying to run a business as well and all that goes along with it, and coach football teams and what have you, it's there's not many spare hours in the day. So.
No, that's it. I think, after all these years that we've known each other, I think you're probably my proudest achievement.
Well, thank you. Yes, I'm probably the surprise I'm still sane, really. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. But when you told me that you'd passed, I mean, I was just absolutely jumping up and down, dancing around the kitchen and everything, just as I'm sure that you were as well.
Yes, absolutely. I'm still on a bit of cloud nine, really. Now thinking about it, probably hasn't completely sunk in until I see all the, look at the certificates and the little gold badges you get from CISI, and it just, the fact that I could now call myself a, chartered wealth manager and certified financial planner and got, letters after my name, and it all looks great. And, that's when you think, I'm proud of what I've done. It's been difficult, but
well, you should absolutely be rightly proud of yourself. Yes. So looking back, what are the things, are there any aspects of going through that process that have, it's helped you change your business or improve your business, or perhaps challenge the way that, you apply some of that knowledge in real life, giving advice to clients now?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when we speak to clients about life expectancy, a lot of them say, well, my mum and dad died when they were in the 60s or 70s, and, we're probably not going to live that much longer. And you say, but, on average, clients, people are living an awful lot longer, and they don't, a lot of people don't realise that. They're not all necessarily aware. So there's people being born now that are going to live well into the hundreds. There's a good chance you may reach 100. Okay, your quality of life and health may not be great, but you're probably going to live in retirement for 20 or 30 years, maybe even 40 years, and you've got to plan accordingly. You're not, you might not live as long as you think, but you have to plan on that basis that you're going to. So, for some people, it's a bit of a shock when you when you tell them that your retirement is going to last nearly as long as your working life, and they don't realise that. So
that's been a huch change, hasn't it? Those kinds of conversations over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a lot of people don't understand their simple things like the state pension benefits and how much they're going to be worth, and what an annuity might look like, and how that might compare against drawdown. And a lot of all these things that you have to do in the case study, a lot of them are, it's all real life stuff. Okay, the case study itself isn't particularly real life in the way it's done, because you wouldn't cover all those subjects all in one go. It'd be,
all in one great big go. Yeah.
No, you'd cover them off bit by bit, but there's an awful lot of information that you have to pass on to a client that has to come from some kind of realistic source. You can't say to clients, you're only going to live 5 years in retirement. What are you going to do? It's it's all very different, and you have to use some real life examples.
Yeah.
As well.
To our assumptions, not just again,
evidence, back to the assumptions, and they are real. You can't. Inflation is a big one. I mean, most people don't understand how inflation works in retirement, and you have to show them, and you have to be realistic. I always tend to err slightly on the conservative side with my assumptions anyway, just because it just makes probably the plan a bit more realistic. You don't want to give too many high hopes, but you also want to make it realistic and not put them off either. So
it's a difficult balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a difficult balance. Yeah. But you need to show how, certainly with cash flow modelling, how long your money's going to last, during your lifetime. And, if you are talking about a 30 or 40 year retirement, that's probably going to require quite a lot of money. So it's, it's, and some people, as we, an awful lot of people completely underestimate what they may need, or they may have already got to that point where they've got enough and just don't understand. So, that's where
and do you think that going through the CFP has helped you, clarify your thoughts when you're talking with clients, about the impact of, as you said, if you do tackle some of their objectives now and leave some of them, perhaps for the next review in 6 months or whatever, if they're not as important, does it help? Has the process helped you be more mindful of the impact of the advice that you're giving? Because I remember when you said you were, just before the days of CFP, that you were, like on your conveyor belt, giving advice on products, and then you're really not thinking about the longer term impact of that, are you? Whereas obviously with financial planning, it's probably more like you are.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think now that, since I set my business up, that I'm not a transactional IFA. We are delving deep, and everything you do has an impact on somewhere down the line with something else. So, if clients are plowing all their money into pensions investments, then they may not have the cash that they need to do now to do other things. And everything's a balancing act. And when you're in transactional IFA world, none of that really matters, does it? So it's, you're really working for your employer, and you're trying to, you meet sales targets and all that kind of thing. Whereas, when you're properly planning for a client, and the amount of information that you need from a client before you even get to the stage of product recommendation is so far down the line now. You probably meet 3 or 4 times before you even get to that sort of transactional stage. So you're really looking, I think, so much more deep in the impact of maybe things like gifts that you probably never even considered back in 15 years ago about and helping grandchildren out, and actually looking at spending plans. So it's not just about saving investment. I have a few clients that I have to actively encourage to spend their money or give it away or whatever, because they've just got too much. That I'd have probably got sacked for doing that 15 years ago. So,
that's a whole different ball game, isn't it? With clients who've got too much money, but an ever increasing problem, perhaps. I guess particularly for boomers, is it? Or have you got other clients?
Most these. I'd say a lot of those clients I've got are in their 60s and early 70s. So they some of them are quite fortunate. They've got very nice final salary pensions coming in, and they've acquired money from tax-free cash and sale of businesses, and they've done very well for themselves, may have even inherited in their lifetime as well. So they've got more money than they can spend. Most of them don't, they don't want a luxury lifestyle. They just want to have a nice life and be comfortable and be able to help the kids and grandkids out. And
have you seen, in the pandemic, have you seen a change in those kinds of clients trying to help their adult children more, or perhaps, generally your clients?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of them are more mindful. I think it's increasingly difficult to get on the housing ladder now. I think the average age of a first-time buyer is almost in the 40s now, which is,
Oh, wow, didn't realise it was that
really
high.
scary. So, I think, I've got quite a few clients that have even got, grown-up children that are actually in the 30s and 40s that are still helping them out now, but they're probably more keen to help them out because they realise actually we've got enough money for ourselves. Why should our kids have to wait 20 or 30 years to inherit it? Let's help them now while they really need it.
Yeah.
If they need to deposit for a house or whatever it is, then, we've got quite a few clients who actually got, some of the kids are going through like career changes and retraining as teachers and things like that who, have needed help with that training, and they've provided for that. So there's quite a few things. And I think, certainly with the pandemic, a lot of people have completely reviewed their needs. I think a lot of people have realised they can spend an awful lot less.
Yeah. And reviewed their lives in totality. I think a lot of people haven't they?
Massively about, maybe people are realising you need less tangible things, and maybe would rather spend money on experiences and things like that.
Doing nice things together and making great memories.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So filling the house with junk.
Yes, bulging at the seams.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it, how, you've been working with a lot of your clients for quite a long time, haven't you? And are you, have you seen a change in them as they've kind of understood more about financial planning as well? How they've kind of been, they get their own light bulb moment, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think when you're suddenly telling a client that, they can spend more money, they're not expecting that. No. I think when they first see you, they're saying to you, they're expecting you to to sell them products. I mean, let's be honest, that's, you know, the kind of reputation that we have is that that's what they think. So they're always on the back foot when they first meet you, and they probably don't really trust you. So, you know, so I think, you know, when you actually point out these things, and actually they you know, they might be able to retire early or you know, cut back on work, or they might be able to spend more on holidays, you know, suddenly all of a sudden, you know, certainly a few of them their eyes light up and you're thinking, great, you know, because we've got a few clients that love international travel and going on cruises and long haul flights, and you know, when you say to them, you know, you could probably afford another one of those a year, and they know that they've probably got another 5 or 10 years of really good health, or probably in front of them where they're active enough to do that, you know, that's life-changing stuff. You know, and when they probably thought they haven't got enough to live on, and you tell them actually you can fit another holiday in a year, or you can retire early, or give some money away, you know, that's not what they're expecting. So,
and I can imagine that in 2022, those clients, you'll probably be barely in the country, will they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I managed it, but I've got 2 or 3 clients that managed to have about 4 or 5 holidays during 2020 and a few last year. I mean, how they managed to get away, I'm not quite sure, but you know, there's a few that went on cruises and all sorts. So I mean, that was must have been an interesting challenge. But I've got a few that will be fully booked up with holidays this year.
To squeeze in their annual review
as many
meeting
as they can. Yeah.
Excellent. So we are nearly out of time today already. I don't know where the time goes talking to you, Matthew. I could talk to you all day. But let's bring it back to the CFP. You know, we've got quite a few people in the community who are thinking of doing the CFP, or maybe maybe doing it in 2022, getting themselves organised. Do you have any tips or hints for those people perhaps sitting on the fence, and maybe we're trying to push them off to get doing it? Any tips that you might want to pass on?
Yeah, I think, with what is coming out with the qualifications, you know, now looking at a chartered financial planner designation and chartered firm designation, I think they're huge plus points. Yeah. You know, that matches, you know, with the chartered financial planner, that sort of status. I mean, obviously it's level 7 rather than level 6, which is, so it's actually one above, but I think, you know, that's a great thing for people to achieve. That's certainly one of the things that attracted it to me, and that's obviously an added bonus, I think, with what's coming out with that as well at the moment. So that's, you know, that's something great to aim for. But I think, you know, if you're gonna do the CFP, you've got to take it seriously. I think, you know, I know quite a lot of people who thought it was going to be a walk in the park, and it isn't. So you really don't underestimate the challenge. But, you know, I think the rewards at the end of it are absolutely worth it. You know, you've got to set the time aside. There's no doubt about that. You might need to set a bit of money aside. I mean, I certainly would. You know, I was probably at my wit's end when I first contacted you. And you calmed me down and pointed me in the right direction, and, you know, that was invaluable. So I would you know, you've got to get help. I think you definitely need some mentoring. It's not something that you can do on your own very easy. There's a lot of good people out there, you know, that can help. I would say, you know, I don't think I would have got through it without you or doing the FP training course. So I think they're a must. You've got to be prepared, you know, to get help. There's nothing wrong with seeking help or getting mentorship. There's plenty of people out there that will do it. So I think, you know, just don't underestimate it. Get help, set plenty of time and a bit of money aside, and the rewards are worth it in the end. So
yeah, absolutely, and I definitely echo all of that. And you are a testament to setting the time aside, and also that it is worth it. And you know, it's been a pleasure to work with you over the last few years, and to see you achieve your goals, and also obviously the ultimate benefit for your clients, happier clients perhaps, and a happier you.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and quite a lot of my clients, you know, were really happy when I got it. You know, they know what I've been through to get it, a lot of them. So, you know, and, you know, it's probably makes them feel better, more comfortable as well, knowing that, there's somebody who's prepared to go all out to improve themselves, which can only benefit them. So
yeah. Absolutely. Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jackie. My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to other people's points of view about different things, all relating to our wonderful financial planning profession. If you know anyone who might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, please pass on our details to them. So that's it from me. Join me again next time when we'll be talking all things certified financial planner related, and also dropping in on our new entrants to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.